Do you own a credit card? Do you want to own a credit card? Or do you have questions about credit cards? If so, this episode's for you. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Brad.
Rich.
And today we're going to give you 5 tips to make you successful when it comes to handling or getting your credit card. So without further ado, Rich, let's start with tip number 1.
All right, so tip number 1 is you want to establish credit early, as young as possible. So if you're 18 years old, look at getting a clothing store gift card or credit card or department store credit card, something like Express, Macy's, something like that you can get pretty easily, and you're going to put money on by buying clothes or whatever it is that you buy at 18 years old. The second part of that, if you are a parent or you're a guardian, you have somebody that you're responsible for, you should get a credit card for them as soon as you can. So different credit card companies have different policies, but generally speaking, as a teenager, you can get your teenager a credit card.
Okay.
They don't have to know that credit card exists.
Sure.
You can spend the money on it, manage the money on it, and pay it off so that they don't even know, but they are establishing credit. Mm-hmm. So they have more purchasing power in the future. So, that's why you get good credit, right? So when you come to a guy like you and, you want to buy a house, you get with your real estate agent and they're like, what happened to your credit score? You don't have one,
Oh, for sure. That's the first thing, especially if you're going to rent a property. That's the first thing that they check. I don't care if you make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
The bottom line is if your credit's shot,
right,
I'm going to want you to pay that whole lease up front.
Yeah.
It's going to be basically the sword.
Yeah.
You're either going to live by it or you're going to die by it,
yeah,
and that's your credit.
It looks at, it's associated with risk, right?
Yep.
You look at, a lender looks at you and they're like, no way, that guy's way too risky, for
100%.
risk, or maybe I'm willing to accept that risk, but as a result, you got to pay me a lot more money up front, like you just said.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And to your point about that, so because you're spending a lot of money on clothes, you're not really making these different you don't probably pay for your own car at 18, or if you do, you probably got some hoopty that you paid cash from your bar mitzvah, from your, confirmation money or whatever. Yeah, exactly. You probably did that with cash, but you're not leasing a 2019 Acura unless you're lucky enough that your parents make the money to do that for you. Exactly. Let's face it, unless at the age of 18. Yeah. So when you do get a credit card, just to hammer that home, go to a Express, go to a Gap. They're looser with their credit limits as far as who they're going to bring in and get moving.
Yeah, just start with an easy place.
Yep.
So.
All right. So what about tip number 2?
Yeah. So you mentioned cash, paying for a hoopty, right? So like cash, everybody says cash is king. Which is true, right? With purchasing power, everybody loves cash, but you can't be afraid to spend money on credit cards and be dedicated to purchasing cash. I know a lot of people have a problem with this, but you don't get anything back when you spend cash. So I go buy a bagel up the block. That guy's not giving me 2 cents back for that bagel that I just spent $2 on or $1.50, whatever. Now, if I buy that with a credit card, I might get a cent, 2 cents back, and then when you go to redeem that 2 cents, if you're redeeming on that credit card's website, maybe that 2 cents is worth 5 cents.
Sure.
Now we're not talking about a bagel anymore, and we're talking about a new couch, $500 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That adds up. So point being, use credit cards whenever possible.
Got it.
As opposed to cash.
Got it.
Keeping that in mind, though, right? You don't want to reach what's called your credit utilization.
Okay.
Which is your balance or your credit limit.
Okay.
So you have a $5,000 credit limit. You don't want to be like, oh, Rich said charge everything on a card. Boom, 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 boom. You still have to be responsible. That's the caveat to all this. Is you only charge what you can pay.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And you don't want to be in a position where the tables have turned.
Yeah, exactly. Where the credit cards, we talk about advantages, right? Like it's you versus the credit card company. It's like when you go to the casino.
Yep. It's
you versus the dealer, right?
Sure.
Like you are up against, you're pitted against the credit card companies. They want you to fail. They want you not to pay on time because they slap you with the interest rates and late payment fees or whatever it is, and before you know it, you're drowning.
So the idea, if you have a $5,000 max, is not to be at $5,000 paying the monthly payment over minimum monthly payment for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Like over time, that doesn't look good. Now you
Yep.
look like a risky person when somebody's going to lend you money.
Got it.
So
So you want to, at the same time though, if you have a $5,000 limit, not have $50 on it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to spend money on that card. Show activity, show that you are utilizing your credit and don't be afraid. Don't just having that credit card is not going to build a credit score for you just by owning it. I mean, you got to use it. You know what I mean? And don't be afraid. I mean, a lot of people are afraid of credit cards. They only deal with cash, and it's like it doesn't make sense, man.
I think they got to also understand the discipline involved. To your
100%.
Point, which is what they're more afraid of, is the fact that they know they're not going to pay it if they charge it. Right. So you have to make that commitment to know your plan and not to get into the tactical, because you lay those out for us, and you'll do that. But you have to have that end goal, which is, I am doing this for this reason. I'm not doing this so that way that the cash that's in my account I can spend on something else. No, in your mind, you've already dedicated that cash towards the expense. Right. The only difference is you're not paying with cash for that product.
And that's what we talk about, like budgeting and money managing as a whole. But you're right, it's what we call an end state, the end state in the military. So like you have an intent, a commander gives an intent, they say, this is what I want done. Here's your right limit, here's your left limit, this is my intent, and this is the desired end state. This is where I want you to be at. So as a credit card owner, you're like, hey, this is my intent. My intent is to be able to purchase things. And then my end state is to be able to have a good credit score so that I can buy a house. What is your end goal? If you're just living like in the here and now and you don't have that, I mean, you need to start thinking about it,
Yep.
And now just the last thing on this tip is, how can you, there's some things people are going to say, well, there's some things I just can't put on a card. I can't put my mortgage on a card. I can't put my rent on a card, or whatever it may be. They don't accept
Can't
cards.
pay your credit cards on a card.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that would be bad if you're paying credit cards on a card. I mean, so there's a service out there called Plastic, PLASTIQ.com. So they charge you a VIG 2.5% fee for using their service. But essentially what it does is you pay them with your credit card. They write a check to whoever the check needs to be written to. Boom, there you go. You're still using your card. So that fee doesn't make sense. Does a 2.5% make sense? Well, the question, you have to ask yourself a couple questions. Do I have the cash on hand to pay this right now? Mm-hmm. So if I write a check, that's the same as cash. They're going to pull it out of my checking account. So if no, then maybe the 2.5% is worth it.
Sure.
Maybe the charge is so high that the points that you get on a rewards credit card will be worth it. There's just a few questions you have to ask yourself, but the option is there.
Definitely think about it. $1,000 rent, it's $20.50.
Yeah.
I mean, if for whatever reason, things happen.
Right. You might have to pay the extra, but you might not have that on hand, but you're going to have it on hand.
Much better to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you even pay something like that in cash, even if it's rent, even though you're paying cash, let's say it's coming out of your bank account. Let's not say you're actually physically paying cash to a landlord.
Right.
It gets pulled out of your bank account. You miss rent, that's going on your credit history too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Even though it has nothing associated with a direct credit card, it's going on your credit history. So pay that $20.50 if you're paying $1,000 a month rent.
You bring a great point out. Like you're looking at the end state, right? I want to buy a house, but so you might be like, well, the $20 fee is not worth it. Well, maybe it is, so that you don't miss rent that month, and then
it's big.
Start digging yourself into a hole.
It's big because there's only a few things in this world that we need. Roof over our head is one of them, and the bottom line is, if you're not buying, you're renting, and you're going to be a risk if you have a ding on your rental history. On the flip side of that, you ain't getting a mortgage unless you have a credit history. So you have to definitely get your game up on that.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so what about tip number 3?
Yeah, so tip 3, it's a good segue from tip 2, is bonus categories. So, what are you spending money on? So, it's going to require you to look at, hey, what are my expenses? I go to the grocery store a lot, I take Uber a lot, whatever. So you look at reward categories, a card, let's say like Discover It, great card with no annual fee, rotating 5% cash back. So now,
what does that mean, rotating?
So like on a rotational basis, like say every month or every couple months, like I think it's every 3 months maybe, they have a different category. So like one month for one cycle it'll be Amazon.
Got it.
Everything you buy on Amazon, boom, extra 5% back.
Got it.
Right now it's Uber, Lyft, and gas station purchases.
Okay.
So you're getting extra 5% back on that. You're not paying an annual fee. I mean, 5%, 5% back. I mean, that's huge.
$1,000. It's what? That's $50
Right. So
there,
up for the current offer, it's up to $75 that you get back. So
Okay.
hey, you get that $75 back. I mean, that's what I'm saying about not using cash. You wouldn't have that $75 back. You might be like, it's only a couple bucks, but it adds up.
Sure.
You know. So and then also, like, if you look at like Uber, take Uber all the time. Maybe the Uber or Visa makes sense for you.
Yep.
You know, like you tailor your credit card to what your major expenses are, and then this way you make the most return on investment for that.
There's a whole world inside of that. I mean,
Exactly.
just like how you were even saying how it's on a rotating basis. I never heard of that before until today. But when you really think about it, it even takes that tactical approach to another level, because if you have the game plan that the credit card company is saying, okay, April, it's Amazon. Any money you spend on Amazon, you're going to get 5% cash back. And then May, it's going to be Uber.
Yeah.
Then the thing is that, okay, maybe Uber, you can't really adjust, but make all of your purchases in April on Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you start really taking that approach. And I think that it seems like it's hard to do. But the bottom line is everything starts with the first step.
Yeah.
So it's like you really can't get to the point where you're like Rich, because Rich is even way more in this space than I am in terms of implementing these tactics on a daily basis when it comes to credit cards, without really getting to the place of what do the bonuses offer? And also, what could I do with these bonuses? And then as you start to really peel the onion apart to see, oh, wow, there's a whole world within these that I just really didn't even know existed.
What am I using card A for? You know, discover it. Like if I got a Chase in my depending on which card it is, maybe I'm not going to make my gas station purchase on that. I'm going to use my Discover instead. You know, so like you look at the diversity of what's in your wallet. You know, I mean, you hear that all the time.
Nice.
What cars do you? What's in your wallet? What do you have in your cards? You know, or what cars do you have? And then what are you using them for? You
Never
know?
leave home without it.
Exactly. It's extremely important, right? Like making sure that you spend in the right places with the right cards. So
because I think the overreaching theme on that is, especially when it comes to the hesitation people have with the credit cards, is you don't want those tables to turn.
Exactly.
So if you're just here, charge it, and in your mind you have kind of and listen, I'm in that place too. I'm, definitely not saying if that is you that it's bad. I'm there too, where sometimes I'm not on my game and I'm not in my head doing a calculation of what is in my account today, and I'm using my credit card here. But the bottom line is, overall, just don't spend more than you have, right? That's the main thing. You generally know what good purchases are, what ones aren't.
And there's levels to it, like you said. I mean, you could be the guy who's looking at every single card that you have, and I mean, there's people who make Excel spreadsheets. I don't do that. I don't have like the patience to do it. But if you have 2 cards in your wallet, that's not hard. Like, don't be so intimidated. Step into the water, dip your whole foot in, and be like, all right, let me just check it out real quick. Spend 20 minutes doing it, because it's going to save you money in the end.
Yep.
And it's kind of like if you gamble, if you play blackjack, you play basic strategy. You play perfect basic strategy, you bring the odds down to like 0.1% or something that the casino has over you, right? You're not going to even them, but you bring it down significantly, so now you actually have a fighting chance against the house.
Yep.
In this instance, the credit card company is the house.
100%.
So yeah, and just to kind of like bring it full circle on this one, on this tip, there are cards out there, if you do want to get into the game a little deeper, that you could pay annual fees for, premium credit cards. So Chase Sapphire Reserve is one of them. Pay $450 a year, but you get a lot of that back. Get like $300 of that back in travel credit, plus a bunch of other perks that we'll talk about next episode when we talk about more advanced credit card tips and premium credit cards. But those options are out there, depending on how deep you want to get in it.
Cool. So what about tip number 4?
Yeah, so tip 4 is don't close your accounts. So a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't know this myself. So a little over a year ago, I was like cleaning up house, and I got OCD, and I'm like, I want everything to be neat and clean. So I was like, I have this Express account, right, from when I was like 18 years old. I'm like, all right, I want to close this. I don't use it anymore. I don't monitor it, which you should. And I just want to get rid of it. So I closed it. Come to find out, as I started to get more in the game of personal finance and credit cards, whatnot, that was a poor decision, because it decimated or didn't decimate, but it could, depending on your history, could decimate your credit history. Like So a credit card company is going to look at you and they're going to be like, oh, well, he only has 5 years of established history, as opposed to the 10 years you had before. So don't close your accounts. Brad, he uses a monitoring service for his accounts.
Yep, Equifax.
Yeah, and you pay a little bit, pay a small fee. They monitor your credit cards. You can set up custom alerts, put your credit card numbers in there, put your phone number in there, all this crazy stuff, and just where you don't have to monitor it, it'll push notifications to you if something shady comes up on a card that you don't use anymore, like any activity. Other than that, though, man, just put the card in a drawer. Just don't touch it.
Yep. Okay. So this way you can maintain that credit history,
Exactly.
which ultimately leads you to a great credit score, and that's what you need, obviously. So what about tip number 5?
Yeah. So tip 5 is the biggest one here. So that's pay your statement balance in full. And now some people may be looking at it and be like, look, man, it's just not realistic for me. And I understand that, and we'll talk about some tactical ways that you can kind of approach that. But the bottom line is that you want to pay off your statement balance in full at the end of every statement. It's important for one, that you're not paying a percentage rate. You're not going to be paying interest or an APR. You're not going to be paying interest on a statement balance if you pay it in full. You never, ever want to make the minimum statement balance or minimum payment. Even if you cannot afford the full statement balance, pay more than the minimum, because you're paying more interest the less of a payment towards the statement balance that you make. So.
And it seems also when you do that, you're just swimming against the tide.
100%.
You're not going to get anywhere, and the only people who are making out are the credit card companies.
Exactly. The house is winning on you, man.
So remember, the whole idea is not, sorry to cut you off, but the whole idea is that if you're paying for something with credit, make sure you have the cash in your account. Now, you may not have the cash in your account that day. Maybe you get paid later that week, but that month, that money's going to be in your account.
Exactly.
And you have to definitely pay that because, it was before our time, and I don't even remember what year it was, but there was a point in time that you could write off credit card interest. And I don't know, it kind of seems like, the industrial credit card complex came up with that, because that is the only thing that you could ever think that it's positive to have credit card interest. But the bottom line is, if it's not something small like plastic, where you're talking 2.5%, and on the other hand, you're talking maybe 25, 26%, that's way too much.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Way too much, but it's out there.
Yeah.
And people are definitely paying the minimums, and they just calculate it into their life, and they just think, okay, if I get paid X, then I can afford this. And let's say it's a $5,000, computer, and now instead of paying $5,000, they're only paying $125 a month. But you're paying a 25% interest on that $125 a month.
Yeah.
So guess what? Don't get the computer unless you have the $5,000.
Yeah, don't let it fool you. I mean, that's the point. Is they want to trip you up. Don't be tripped up by them and be like, hey, oh man, I only have to make a $34 payment. Don't get suckered into it. So there are some ways that you can approach it though. So from that point, saying there are some ways you can approach it, let's talk about that tactical aspect. So you want to break that down for us? Yeah, 100%. So I would view this as the same as I would view like any military operation. I'm laying out all my pieces strategically and saying, all right, what are the different, what things am I dealing with right now on the battlefield? Like, all right, so for one, let's say you have 3 credit cards. And you have high balances on all of them, right? Like you're pushing up against your credit utilization, or maybe just on one or two of them and not on the other one. Every single one of them is probably going to have a different APR. So you're paying a different amount of interest on each one. All right, so the first thing I'm going to say is like, which one has the highest interest? Because that's costing me the most likely, depending on the balances.
That's enemy number one.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my first target. So I'm looking at that, and I'm cutting out all the other noise, and I'm focusing. I'm like, this is my number one target right here, and I have $1,500 on that. All right, I need a surge on that. I need to put all my efforts onto that card. Forget about the other cards. Yeah, they're still your problems. They're still there, but they're not your immediate threat right now. They're not popping up and shooting at you. This guy is, though. He's right in front of your face, and every month he's reminding you that you're paying interest on that money that you owe.
Take him out.
Focus on hey, so that requires a couple things, right? You have to have good budgeting skills. Not even skills, but just to say, where's my money coming from? Where does it have to go to every month? Who do I have to pay every month? And how am I organizing it so that I'm not putting money where it doesn't belong. So
got to be aware.
Exactly. So great app for that is a Good Budget. It takes the old idea of, my mom taught me this growing up, you put money into an envelope and you label the envelope. This is gas. This is what I use on gas each month. This is food. This is what I use for food. And now look at the other expenses that you have and say, maybe I could take from this month because this is not charging me 25% interest, and I'll put it towards the card this month. That's the concept of surging. So boom, you surge on that card, bring the balance down, done. Then you pick target number 2. That's my second credit card that has the highest balance. Before you know it, you'll have it paid down to 0, and hopefully you could start consolidating purchases on one card so that you're not spread across multiple cards.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
So that's how I would tactically approach that. Now, also what I would do is I would call the credit card company. I'll call a credit card company and say, can you work with me on the APR? Some people might think like that sounds crazy, but it's been proven through research that the surveys and whatnot that it does work. Like something like over 80% of people who called and just said, hey, can you lower this interest rate? Like this is like too much for me right now. Got it lowered. Mm-hmm. So why not? What could it hurt to pick up the phone and call?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. It's an automatic no if you don't ask.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's my tactical approach for saying for.
So just to recap, the first one, step 1 of your tactical approach is see where you have the largest balance.
Immediate threat. Yep. Largest balance with respect to what the interest rate is.
Got it. So would you say that the balance is most important or the interest rate?
I'd say.
Or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. It depends, because obviously if you have a $5,000 balance on a 25% interest card, but you only have $300 on a 30% interest, you know what I mean? Like,
yep, you got to weigh it out.
You're paying more for the 25% interest because the balance is higher.
Got it.
So both of those things is important.
So maybe with that, to refine the step of the first tactical, it would be what credit card you're paying the most dollar amount based on interest on?
Exactly. So what do you... The easier way to say it is, what are you paying the most for?
Got it.
How you figure out what you're paying the most for is what the balance is and what the interest rate is.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And then the second one would be go to the second card that you're paying the most money strictly of interest on.
Right.
So you have your principal amount,
yeah,
and then you have your interest amount.
Yeah, and weaved in that is kind of budgeting, right? Which is a whole nother episode on itself, but you have to figure out like, hey, what are it's like the tools in your arsenal, right? Mm-hmm. You have an M4 for this, you have a machine gun for this, threat, whatever. You have this income for this, right? Maybe you have a second income that goes to this, and now you're strategically planning where my money goes to achieve my end state of a clean credit history with whatever, so I can get whatever I want. I gotta get a house, or I can, get a car, or whatever.
Small business loan.
Exactly. So you want to keep your credit history clean as possible. A lot of people don't see that because they don't think of second and third order effects. They think of like the here and now. Here and now, I can't afford this right now. Doesn't matter. Can't pay it. Non-negotiable. But they're not thinking about 10 years from now when they want to buy a house and they have a family and they're in a better financial position. And a guy like Brad's like, listen, dude, you owe me a lot of money, thousands of dollars. I can't trust you, man. You're a nice guy, but look at your credit history. It's poor.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, so you don't want Brad to tell you no. So just think forward.
I want to tell you yes.
Sacrifice now to have that good credit history later on.
And there's actually something that we'll do another episode on, but believe it or not, everything that we laid out here is the same exact way that you build credit for a company when you open up a business, whether that's a DBA, doing business as, a sole proprietorship, a partnership, an S Corp, a C Corp, anything, an LLC. Basically the same exact things that we laid out here with a couple of more steps on the front end. But, just so you all know, this is a really important skill, and it's one that will transcend you if you ever go into business for yourself or if you ever open up a company. So with all of that being said, those are the 5 tips. If you want to get in contact with Rich, or what's up with you, where can they reach you? Where can they learn more about this?
Yeah, so I write about credit cards, right? You can check out my website, dolanscorner.com. I've written for military.com as well as thepointsguy.com, which is another great place to check out if you want to learn more about credit cards, points, benefits. So thepointsguy.com, just search my name in there and you'll find the article I wrote.
Okay. And if you guys want to hear more about real estate, and then you could go to Manhattan Real Estate for Sale. It's a channel on YouTube where, even though it's Manhattan, if you live in one of the other boroughs, it'll definitely be information pertaining to you. If you need any help with any real estate needs, or you have any questions about mortgages, getting pre-approved, how a bank gets you approved, we'll definitely touch on that too in this show as well. You could go and contact me at 212-321-0541 or ManhattanRealEstateForSale.com. Now, do you want to talk about next episode?
Yeah, so next episode is going to touch on more premium credit cards, ones with annual fees, credit card tips, or premium credit card tips on how to get, let's say, free travel. Travel around the world for free, or with your family for free, or whatever the case may be, but how to leverage premium top tier credit card benefits, as well as for military folks out there, the Service Members Civil Relief Act and the Military Lending Act, and how you could get thousands of dollars annually or save thousands of dollars annually by not paying credit card fees.
Military doesn't have to?
Yeah, so active duty military, you could have 6 credit cards, couple $1,000s in annual fees that you don't pay, and you still reap the benefits of $300 annual travel credit, or whatever the case may be.
Nice.
So yeah,
automatic savings right there.
Absolutely. So it's a big deal, and we'll talk about it next episode.
All right, great. So we're going to wrap it up, and I forgot, but I definitely got to say it. Thank you, Butch and Amanda.
Yes.
As you all can see, we're at Butch's Boxing Gym in Queens, New York, ranked the best boxing gym for 2019.
Absolutely.
They are the best for a reason. And again, thank you, Butch and Amanda, for letting me and Rich do our 3-to-1 Financial Tactics podcast here. So we will talk to you guys next week. And if you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them below. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube, and hit that notification button. So this way, when we come out with a new video, you'll automatically be notified. See you all next week.